Take a slow breath for a second and let your body soften. Put the noise aside. Let the pressure in your mind settle down just a little and turn your attention inward to what you have really been feeling under everything else. Lately, something has been happening that is hard to explain in plain words. Maybe it comes as a sudden tight feeling in your chest. Maybe a memory of one person rises out of nowhere and stays there. Maybe there is a restless current under your normal routine, like a quiet electric hum you cannot switch off. That feeling is not random, it is not foolish, and it is not just your imagination trying to create a story. It is a signal. Something is moving toward you now, and a deeper part of you is picking it up before your mind can fully name it. Your inner self notices things long before the outside world gives proof. It catches small emotional shifts that happen under the surface, faster than words, faster than actions, faster than any message on a screen. That is why you can feel change with this person before there is any visible sign in your daily life. That soft pull in your chest, the one you tried to dismiss, may actually be your inner guide telling you this connection still has unfinished moments left in it. If this has been your feeling lately, stay with me, because what comes next may explain more than you expected. Big changes often begin this way. First, there is pressure inside. Then the outside world starts to move. You are in that middle space right now, and it matters more than you think. What used to feel silent is not fully silent anymore. Tiny openings are forming where there once seemed to be nothing but closed doors. Your place in this person's world did not vanish the way you feared. While you were carrying questions, while you were trying to live through the uncertainty, something was quietly changing inside of them. The walls they built from fear, pride, confusion, and the need to stay in control have not stayed as strong as they looked. They have been weakening little by little. That strong feeling you keep sensing is there for a reason. They are now holding emotions they can no longer bury as easily as before. The truth is starting to rise whether they feel prepared for it or not. What exists between you is not a light thing that time and distance can erase without effort. To understand why this shift is happening now, you have to see what they have been going through in private. They kept space, yes, but they also kept watching from a distance. They moved carefully. They tried to act as if they were fine. They looked calm. They looked settled. On the outside, they appeared to have moved on into a new routine, but that image was only a cover. It was a role they kept playing so they could keep believing that pulling away had been the right decision. If you have been feeling their energy even without contact, that is not as strange as it sounds. Sometimes the silence between two people is full of movement no one else can see, and that hidden movement has already started. As time passed, the mask became heavier for them to carry. Under that calm surface, a private struggle kept growing. Night after night they wrestled with what they truly felt. They used logic to explain the distance. They told themselves staying away was safer, smarter, easier. Some of that came from pride, some came from fear, some came from not knowing how to handle feelings that felt too deep to manage. This happens more often than people admit. Sometimes someone steps back not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much. Being fully seen can shake a person. Real closeness can wake up old fears about losing control, being hurt again, or having to face parts of themselves they usually keep hidden. But when a bond is real, pure logic cannot hold forever. Slowly, the walls they built began to weaken, and as those walls weakened, they started noticing something important. Life without you did not feel fuller. It felt dimmer. Something essential was missing, and they could not easily replace it or explain it away. A new awareness began to grow in them. They started to see that the guarded version of themselves, the cold and controlled version, was not their truest self. It was only a survival role, and it no longer fit. Every effort they made to move farther away kept getting interrupted by thoughts of you. It was not ordinary missing. It touched the deepest part of their identity. At some point, that became impossible to ignore. This is where inner awakening begins. Not in noise, not in drama. In the quiet moment when a person realizes the lie they told themselves is no longer strong enough to cover the truth, they tried distractions. They filled their days. They stayed busy. They surrounded themselves with noise, conversations, routines, places and people that looked normal from the outside. But even then, the comparisons kept returning. Thoughts they would never say aloud kept drifting back to you. Small moments began to carry your memory. The quiet before sleep, a random word, a place, a song, a time of day. Even busy spaces started feeling empty, and in those empty spaces, their mind kept circling back to the same truth. What they shared with you was not casual. It was not a passing spark. It reached parts of them no one else had ever touched in the same way. Once a person realizes that, they cannot go back to pretending it means nothing. Their thoughts may still argue, their pride may still resist, but the heart begins to speak with a force ordinary reasoning cannot beat forever. There were nights when they remembered conversations you may have forgotten. Small moments that once seemed simple now feel full of meaning in their memory. The way you looked at them when they were struggling, the calm your presence brought without trying, the ease of being with someone around whom they did not need a performance. That kind of emotional safety is rare, and once it is gone, the space it leaves behind can become impossible to ignore. If your intuition has been telling you something is shifting, do not scroll past that feeling too fast. Sometimes the clearest signs arrive before the first action. What is happening inside them has been building for longer than you know, and it is now reaching a point where avoidance no longer gives relief. They once believed distance would weaken the bond. They told themselves enough time would soften it, enough silence would reduce it, enough space would slowly erase you from their emotional world. But the opposite happened. The longer the separation lasted, the clearer their feelings became. Instead of fading, your presence grew stronger in their thoughts. They began noticing you in the small spaces they never expected, in the silence before sleep, in conversations that suddenly felt shallow, in busy moments where they still felt strangely alone. That is when a deeper realization started taking root. They began to understand that what existed between you was not just attraction, habit, or comfort. It was something that changed the way they felt closeness itself. Once that truth enters a person deeply, it starts changing how they see everything. Pride may still say, "You can move on." Fear may still whisper, "Stay protected." But neither voice sounds as strong once the heart has recognized something real. They tried filling the missing space with other things. It did not work. The more they searched elsewhere, the more clearly they understood what had been there between you all along. There comes a point when pride reaches its limit and has to face emotional truth. For this person, that point is very close if it has not already arrived. They are beginning to see that meeting you changed something in them for good. It is not something they can simply undo because it became inconvenient. Keep listening, because this next part matters. While all of this has been unfolding inside them, something important has also been changing inside you, and that shift may be the very reason everything is now turning. You are not standing where you once stood. Yes, you may still think of this person. Yes, part of you may still wonder what happens next, but you are no longer in the same emotional place as before. Something inside you has become stronger, quieter, steadier. You learned what it feels like to keep reaching towards someone who was not meeting you in the middle. You learned the exhaustion of carrying too much emotional weight alone. And slowly, through the confusion and the silence, you began to call your energy back to yourself. That change is bigger than it seems. Because when you stopped stretching yourself too far, when you stopped making yourself endlessly available in hope that it would finally be enough, the energy between you changed. There was a time when your inner world depended too much on them, on whether they answered, on whether they appeared, on whether they noticed you, but at some point you became tired of living like that. Not in a dramatic way, in a real way. Your deeper self understood that your peace mattered, so you turned your focus back inward, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring for yourself with the same devotion. That created a real energetic shift. When someone is always giving outward, their presence can start to feel constant, almost expected. But when that energy returns home, its absence becomes impossible to ignore. If you feel this is exactly what happened, hold that thought. This is where everything begins to change. Your calm is not a loss of feeling. It is a return to your center, and that center has more power than chasing ever did. This is what they are noticing now. They feel your distance in a different way because your energy no longer carries the same urgency. It does not beg, it does not strain, it does not revolve around waiting for them. Instead of weakening the bond, this has forced them to face what they have really been missing. That is why they have grown restless. Some part of them senses you are changing in ways they did not expect. The version of you that waited, tried harder, and made yourself smaller is no longer the same. That creates urgency. Because suddenly time does not feel endless. People often do not understand the value of something until they have spent enough time living without it. They are now sitting with the weight of every delay, every fear-based choice, every feeling they push down instead of facing. For the first time, avoiding the truth is not easy. Sometimes separation does not end a bond. Sometimes it reveals it. Distance has a way of exposing emotional patterns. It shows where fear lives. It shows who has been losing themselves while trying to be loved. It also shows what remains when both people are forced to stand alone. This period changed both of you, but not in the same way. It helped you remember your worth without needing their approval to prove it. It forced them to move through life without your unique emotional presence beside them. And now they are starting to understand what that really means. They do not only miss your attention, they miss your depth, they miss your energy, they miss the way they felt in your presence, the rare ease of being understood without explaining every layer of themselves. That kind of absence becomes loud after enough time. What they are going through now is not a passing mood. It is not one difficult evening and then nothing. It has become steady. It moves through their daily life whether they deal with it or not. There are ordinary moments when something suddenly pulls their full attention back to you. A scent, a phrase, a place, a time of day, a silence in the room. At first, these moments made them uneasy because they wanted to believe they were fully in control of their own thoughts. They wanted to decide when you mattered and when you did not. But deep emotional truth does not obey those rules. The stronger the bond, the more naturally it returns by itself. They are reaching the point where fighting the connection takes more energy than simply being honest. The walls that once felt like protection now feel more like isolation. The silence they once thought they needed has become heavy instead of safe, and that heaviness has forced real reflection. They are looking back with clearer eyes now. They remember times when you tried to understand them while they stayed distant. They remember your patience. They remember your softness. They remember how much space you gave without making it hard. Those memories feel different to them now because they can finally see what was really being offered. Real care can seem ordinary while it is present every day. Its rarity becomes clear only after it is gone. They searched for pieces of what you gave in other places and found nothing that matched, not even close. If this is hitting home, stay to the end, because the next part explains why action may come sooner than it once seemed. Inner truth builds quietly for a long time, and then one day it begins to move everything. Fear has been the main force guiding them for a long time. Fear of getting hurt, fear of losing control, fear of being fully open, fear of being truly seen and then left. But fear has limits. Eventually, the burden of avoiding the truth becomes heavier than the risk of facing it. That is the stage they are moving toward now. The silence between you is no longer empty for them. It has become loud. Every day they remain disconnected, the inner pressure grows. Every time they try to push the feeling down, it rises again in another form. This is why the energetic pull you have been noticing has felt so strong lately. Something inside them is preparing for change, not a forced change, not a performance, a real one. They are beginning to understand that losing you would not simply mean losing a person. It would mean losing a part of themselves that only came alive through this bond. That realization can change someone deeply. It changes how they measure time. It changes how they remember the past. It changes what they can no longer tolerate pretending not to feel. Whether they have shown it yet or not, their heart is moving toward a point where silence becomes harder to keep than honesty. They imagine different outcomes. They think about what they would say. They think about how you may respond. They wonder if too much time has passed. They wonder if there is still a way back. These thoughts are not occasional anymore. They are returning again and again. And when a person reaches that stage, the old avoidance patterns begin to crack. The next move may still scare them, but the truth underneath is now stronger than the mask they used to wear. That changes the whole direction of the story. There have been moments when they came very close to reaching out. The pressure built, the message almost formed, the silence nearly broke, and then fear stepped in at the last second, as it has many times before. But fear is losing strength now, not all at once, slowly, steadily. Day by day, emotional truth is becoming heavier than the old safety those habits once offered. The part of them that worked so hard to stay guarded is wearing down. Beneath all the resistance, they already know what is real. No one else has touched them in quite the same way. No one else brought that exact mix of emotional depth, recognition, comfort, and truth. No one else made them feel both exposed and understood at once. That knowledge has changed everything. What once felt uncertain now feels deeply important. What they used to avoid has become hard to escape. What they tried to dismiss grows clearer with every passing day. And clarity creates movement. It may not happen in one dramatic scene. It may come through a small message, a sudden sign, a shift in tone, an opening that was not there before. But movement begins when denial can no longer do its job. If you have been sensing that something is close, that feeling may not be wrong. Still, the deeper message here is not only about what they will do, it is about who you have become through all of this. Because the reason this shift can happen now is not just that they miss you, it is that you stopped abandoning yourself in the process of waiting, and that changed the energy more than any pleading ever could. You have entered a different phase now. The pressure you once carried is starting to turn into clarity. The resistance is fading because the truth is finally being allowed to breathe. They are reaching a point where they can no longer ignore what has been pulling them back to you for so long. They are starting to understand that the safety they thought they would find in distance was never really there. The deeper safety was in the honesty of the connection itself. That realization is what begins to end avoidance. Their mind is clearing. They are able to look at their choices, their patterns, and their feelings with more honesty than before. And this did not happen because you forced anything. It happened because you stepped back and let truth reveal itself. You are now in a period where the results of your patience and growth become visible. The energy you reclaimed is acting like a magnet because it is no longer chasing, it is no longer proving, it is simply being. That creates space for them to face their own responsibility in this bond. Do not be surprised if signs begin showing up in your life in unexpected ways. A message, a sudden appearance, a different tone, a strong sense that something has shifted for real. The path that once felt blocked is opening piece by piece. Keep trusting your inner voice. It has been guiding you through this whole process. The quiet you lived through was not punishment, it was preparation. It made room for a more honest, grounded kind of reconnection, one that does not depend on panic or fantasy, but on real emotional truth finally coming into the light. So stay calm now, stay centered. Keep honoring your own worth. That is what keeps the balance in your favor. The story between you is not finished simply because it paused. Much has been happening under the surface, inside both of you, in ways that could not be seen yet. You have been waiting, yes, but you have also been growing. And that growth is the key. It unlocks the clarity you wanted for so long. Hold on to the peace you have built. Let that peace become your foundation for whatever comes next. Do not throw it away the second movement begins. What is shifting toward you now is not meant to drag you back into old confusion. It is meant to meet the stronger version of you that this silence helped create. Everything is moving in a different direction now. The questions that once haunted you are slowly being replaced by understanding. The doubts that kept spinning in your mind are losing their power, and the truth is becoming simple. When someone truly feels your absence in the deepest way, they cannot remain asleep to it forever. The next step may come through their words, their action, or the sudden breaking of a long silence. But whether it comes tomorrow or a little later, the inner movement has already begun. And that matters. Because once a person is no longer standing outside their feelings, deciding whether to enter, once they are fully inside them, silence becomes much harder to maintain. If this message found you at the right time, take that as a sign to stay grounded, stay open, and keep moving with your own dignity. What is meant to reach you will not need you to abandon yourself to receive it.